Okay, this is now the tarot lesson number 3. And, excuse me, it's a kind of follow-up to number 2. And in number 2, we were looking at the 7 of Swords here. And we were just focusing on the 2 swords at the background and the 5 swords in the fellow's hand. We're forgetting about the background, the people, the colours, the rest of it. So I suggested that I have a suggestion how you might want to develop ongoing understanding of any card or of all cards. So you get a sheet of paper, right? So here's a piece of paper. And I wrote down the 7 of Swords in the middle. And so in the last one, I talked about the difference between, or I noticed, these 2 swords here, which are stable, and the fellow taking off with the other 5. And rather than say this is stable and this is unstable, I wrote down on a piece of paper, stable, and then I wrote iffy. Because I don't know if you know the word or the expression, but if something is a little bit iffy, it's like it's not quite right, or it's maybe, you know, there's something wrong with it, something off, it's iffy. And so the first thought I had was 2 swords are stable, but the 5 are kind of iffy. And that's what I write down on, let's say, today. And then I go back to it tomorrow, for instance, and I look at, and I think, do I have anything more to add? Or I'm not trying to force it, and we shouldn't try to force understanding. And you know when you're reaching and you're trying to, and you're just making stuff up. So we don't need to do that. So I go back to, I've got stability and I've got iffy, and then I think, what did I write here? Rushing. Okay, because it looks like the difference between the 2 swords stuck in the ground and the person taking off with them, and it looks like he's rushing, or maybe there's haste involved. So when this card comes up in a reading, maybe the person ought to think about what's stable and what's rushing. And maybe the idea of the card is identify what's stable and already works or is already in place, and then identify what is not quite in place, and maybe you need to work on what's not in place. So I've added something here, and then let's say I've done enough for the day, and I go back a couple of days later and I look at the picture again, and oh yeah, so I've got the 2 swords here, which in a way are ready for use, and that's what I wrote down. Ready for use, because you can go along and you can, the handle is easy to access. You just hold it and pick it up. So these 2 are part of the situation, or part of the answer is ready for use, and you can make immediate progress or make immediate developments. But most of the picture, because of the way the person's holding the 5 swords, I wrote down awkward. And it's a bit like these 2 can be easily manipulated because of the way they are. But the person, there's an awkwardness about it. And so I can come back tomorrow or the next day and look at, and maybe revise the word awkward, and think of, I notice something else in the meantime, or I come up with a different idea, that in the same way that with this one, I went from iffy to rushing, I could go from awkward to, I don't quite know at this moment what other word instead of awkward, maybe, because if you notice he's looking back, so maybe he's feeling guilty, or maybe he is, or the person in the questioner, the person that the card refers to, is not 100% confident. You know, they're moving ahead, yes, but maybe they've got one eye on the past, or they're making sure that things are going to be okay, that they haven't left something behind maybe. So what you're doing is you're developing an understanding of the card. You're not thinking about meanings particularly, but you're developing an understanding of what's going on in the picture. Then when you know what's going on in the picture, when you've got a questioner and an actual question and the card comes up, you're going to automatically talk sensibly about the card without having to remember. You'll just notice and you'll know what to say, because in the meantime you've been developing an understanding of the card and what's going on with it. And the other thing is, I put one other point at the bottom here. Oh yeah, this card, in this particular Seven of Swords, I wrote down contradictions, because in a way we've got stability here and we've got instability over here. So there's a contradiction going on with this particular card. And I thought, whereas I wrote down the Three of Cups, but there's the Four of Batons. That's just one. It's welcoming, it's friendly, it's happy, it's successful, it's enjoyable, it's a sunny day, and it's like there's one type of activity going on in this particular card. Whereas here in the Seven of Swords, we've got, I don't want to say contradictions, but we've got more than one and maybe incompatible activity or idea going on. And so maybe what you do then is we've got the Four of Batons is sort of one type of experience. And so is the Three of Cups, where you've got the women dancing and celebrating. And so maybe you look at the other cards to see what other cards show two different things going on at the same time. And maybe they're not quite in harmony with each other, or maybe the Seven of Swords indicates there's a need to develop harmony or compatibility between two different things or two different people or two different experiences. So the other thing is, I wanted to show you this incredible diagram. Right, I think I referred to this a bit yesterday, but here we've got the x-axis is time and the y-axis is understanding, and as you go up the y-axis you've got more understanding. So at the end of the day, you think about what you've been through in the day. Maybe you're just thinking about the tarot itself and what you learned, or maybe you think about what you went through during the day. And at the end of the day, you know for sure you learned something. Maybe it was a terrible day, but you learned you don't like that person, or you don't like that experience, or you've had enough of working overtime, or you've had enough of driving in traffic, whatever it happens to be. But now you know. So you've learned something from the day. And so what you do is you get, and in your notebook or your journal or whatever you keep, or your piece of paper, you draw an x-axis and a y-axis, and you put a little dot there. And that represents your learning today, your understanding today. And it's a bit better than it was yesterday. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, a little bit. All it means is you have more understanding today. And then tomorrow, I have a pen somewhere here. There's a pen. Okay, tomorrow you're going to do the same thing. And so maybe you think through what happened during the day. And if you realize that yesterday's understanding wasn't quite what you thought it was, that doesn't mean you've got to go back and fix it or change it. Because today, because you realize that yesterday's understanding wasn't as good as you thought it was, you've understood a bit more. So you can put another little dot for today up there, and you gradually over time, if you each day you learn a little bit or learn something or understand a tiny bit more, it means that when you come back to put your dot, you're going to be going upward as time goes by, you develop more understanding. Okay, that's what I wanted to say for lesson 3. So I'll be back, what's the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll try and put another one up on Thursday, and that'll be lesson 4. And we'll probably go back to a card itself and see what we get, rather than this. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.